Hello, everyone. On this Monday evening, Matt Bailey here. My Ventrilo adventure continues from a 46th Street apartment. Tonight, we are live on tape in the home of comedian, woman's activist, and of course, ventriloquist April Brucker. Not only does Brucker have the distinction of being this program's first ever female guest, both her and I are willing to admit that she is the first guest that may seem a bit controversial to our listeners. Having starred in an episode of My Strange Addiction, as well as an infamous appearance on The Rachel Ray Show, April's image in the media has been the source of diverse reactions. Ventriloquism Weekly seeks not to stir up more controversy, but to truly understand who this very interesting figure in our art form is and to get to know the real April Brucker. But whatever we may talk about today and wherever our conversation may lead, there is one unmistakable thing about Miss Brucker. She is as nice a lady as you will ever meet and very excited to talk about this art form. April Brucker, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for having me. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I am absolutely fabulous. Let the games begin.
Yes. Well, I always begin at the beginning with my guests. And of course, the first question for you is, how did you get started in this art form?
It's actually a really crazy story. I grew up the child of two educators, which meant that if you wanted to live in my house on Foxtail Drive, the one covered with the ivy tree and all that crap, you had to be a thinker. And so I grew up without cable TV. I had 3 channels in my house. That's right, 3. I know the kids today are like, listening, but 3. 3 channels. And we weren't allowed to watch TV on school nights, only weekends. And so I had a really active imagination as a result. And I was encouraged as a reader by my parents. And first and foremost, I was a writer. I've been a writer since I was 9. But anyway, my brother made the football team in high school, and my father wanted to see the games. So that meant getting the local channel. And when you get one channel, you got to get 50, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, so my father was like, okay, I have to buy 30 channels. And so we were watching a special. I think it was AMC or A&E or one of those. And it was a tribute to Edgar Bergen. And all these famous ventriloquists were on. Jeff Dunham was on. Dan Horn was on. Ron Lucas was on. All these folks were on. And so we all tried talking like the ventriloquists. And my mom and dad couldn't do it. My brother couldn't do it. My sister Skipper couldn't do it. But now she actually performs as an amateur ventriloquist. She's a doctor. And she has a puppet named Dr. Know-It-All, and she teaches people about diabetes. But anyway, I was the only one in my family that could do it because I got my great-grandmother's Irish smile. And that Christmas, guess what was waiting for me under the tree?
A dummy.
Bingo, a Groucho Marx ventriloquist figure, and I love the Marx Brothers, so it was perfect.
Absolutely. So what were those? We've been sitting here and talking for a little bit here before getting started with the recording, and you said you have an interesting story about one of your first ever performances.
Yeah, for years I'd been practicing in front of the mirror, and I was running around the house with my Groucho Marx figure, and I grew up a fan of the Marx Brothers because one thing that we had in our home was old movies, because that's what happens when PBS is one of the few channels you can watch.
Right.
Yeah. And so my mother encouraged me to perform, and I got a gig at a nursing home. And so I thought, I'm 15, I can do this, I can handle this. Well, guess where they stuck me? The Alzheimer's wing.
Yeah, I've encountered that, and I think they're receptive to it. They just it's just a different reaction, just because of what they have going on.
Of course, it was a very different reaction. Many of them knew the Marx Brothers movies, so it was a hit. But some of them thought that Groucho was real.
Yeah, so you get that too. Nostalgia.
Yes, nostalgia. And one woman, she sees me performing with Groucho, and she goes, "Get me out of here!"
Oh man! So then you grew to love it. Was there ever a time where you had to put it away and sort of enter the real world with regards to working and not playing with the dolls and getting back to it?
Actually, yes, there was. When I was 21 years old, I wish I could say that I had the high self-esteem that I always do now, but I didn't. I found myself in a relationship with a guy that was abusive. And this is where a lot of my women's activism work comes in. And I know that this is a little scary for some of the guys listening, like, woman's activist, relax. I don't hate men. Anyway, this particular partner was abusive, and he controlled what I wore. And he said, you have to put the puppets away. My friends don't like the puppets. And later it's, you can't, use the puppets. You can't talk to your family. And so this is the part that TLC didn't talk about. And so ultimately, I became so depressed that I figured, if I don't get out of this relationship is going to kill me. And so I got out and I picked up the puppets, and I've been running ever since, because in this life you have to be true to yourself, and that's what I always tell young people when I speak to them. And I'm grateful that ventriloquism has given me the platform to pass on that message.
Yes, ventriloquism is really excuse me, I'm going to fix our gain. Ventriloquism really is a tool for growth and for encouragement. And now I want to shift focus. How did you come in contact with the TLC channel and the My Strange Addiction show?
Well, that was a crazy story. At the time, they placed an ad on Craigslist, where all good things happen.
Yeah.
And I'd been doing a ton of street performing, and I had almost been killed during one of my performances.
Let's hear that story.
All right. The story is that I was performing in McCarran Park, and I was wearing a cute little dress. I had May with me, and I was busking for a flea market. And so here I was, I had May, we were performing, and May's a little bit, she's a valley girl. She's that girl. She's always got a man, always working some angle, always wants a meal ticket, right? Guys listening, she's not the girlfriend that you want. Anyway, May made the mistake of speaking to a senile homeless man. And he had crazy eyes. And so he goes, "So all you want is my money. You don't want to talk to me." And so I'm talking as May, and I said, and so we made some excuses. And so suddenly he just starts lunging towards us. And I mean, I ran like Mercury, and I was in heels. And stiletto heels are not made for running, children. I mean, seriously, ladies, don't ever run in stilettos. You will get hurt. But anyway, I was running, and he was chasing me, and I was like, and finally I lost him. And so that derailed some of my street performing for a little bit until the following week. But my friend saw this ad on Craigslist, and they were looking for somebody addicted to ventriloquism. And he said, "April, ventriloquism has interfered with your relationships. It almost got you killed several weeks ago. This is the perfect venue for you." And so I replied, and TLC said, "We're looking for a fun episode," because they had the chalk eater and all that stuff. And so I went on, and they filmed me, and the rest is history.
Yes. Now, the thing with those shows, I've come to realize through just talking to other vets who've done certain things, is they create a caricature of the performer. Mm-hmm. How much of you watch the April Brucker episode, and you see your family trying to talk you off of puppets, and you see different things. How much of that episode was you, and how much of it was a character created for that entertaining aspect of that program?
Well, I think the question is how it was edited together, because sometimes they'll edit a reality show together for entertaining purposes. But the truth is that my family, they sometimes have had to talk me out of this career choice, because I'm from a family of educated people. My brother and my sister are doctors. My mom is a teacher. My dad's a lawyer / college professor. So we've had these conversations. That's real. And I do run around with my puppets, and I do perform for anybody that wants me to. But some of it, was a combination of me / the network / let's make a good episode. Let's make TV. And I know that some people in the ventriloquist community have had their opinions about me, and that's fine. Not everybody's going to love me, and I'm fine with that. But the people that need to see me and hear my message, hopefully I got to them.
Absolutely. And it's just interesting because people don't normally think of that sort of a venue for getting the word out there. So, what was your hope with going on to that show, and what were you hoping people would see?
I was hoping people, especially young people, would see that it's okay to be who you are and to follow your dream. And also for young women to know that you don't have to compromise to keep a partner. And if that partner is taking away something that you love, to cut them loose. And my hope and my aim is especially to reach young women to let them know that you're okay with or without a partner and you deserve to be treated well. And if you are with somebody that doesn't treat you well, don't be afraid to cut them loose. Like, you don't have to, like, because so often women are told a bad husband is better than no husband. No husband is better than a bad husband.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. To stay out of those bad relationships. And so, after that, did you see a boost in your career? Did you see maybe a drop just because people were a little worried about what that show might do, or did it kind of stay the same? What was the reaction?
The truth is that the reaction was excellent. Some of my comedic peers didn't approve of my actions, but the truth is it was more about me getting the TV time and them not. Yes, because comedians are jealous, in case you didn't know. But what I did notice was I got support from a lot of people. Suddenly, people all over the world knew who I was. I was being recognized on the street by fans. I was getting incredible fan letters. And the reason that I've become so active on women's issues is I gave a few interviews where I spoke about my relationship, and I got letters from young women who were in similar circumstances. And I was working at a club at the time that I got fired from because apparently I wasn't there enough to host the open mic, because apparently, when you're on TV, you can't be there and blah, blah, but that's a different story. I don't want to dwell too much on the negative, but it opened doors that I never dreamt of. I became a talking head on a website for a while and got paid for it, which made my parents very happy. I made YouTube videos that people watched. I still get fan letters from both men and women letting young people know that it is okay to follow your career. And it is okay. And I also got the chance to do some public speaking about anti-bullying. I got a chance to publish my book. I got a chance to make music. My single Stay was #1 on internet radio for 5 weeks. So maybe the doors didn't open where I thought that they would, but the doors did open. And so the last thing I'll say, because I know that I'm gregarious and I love to talk, is that sometimes your dreams will come true, but just not in the way you thought. So just be open.
That is exactly true, and that's something I kind of drive home with our listeners, probably to a fault now with just starting this program. That's been my experience. But yeah, so can you talk about some of your other television experiences? Because they have been quite a lot. I was looking at your resume on your website. I must confess, you've had a few television shows locally here, if I read the resume correctly, with your name in the title. So if you could talk about those.
Yes, I was on Anthony Bourdain, which they were filming street performers. And I wasn't aware what they were doing until suddenly everybody's like, April, you were on Anthony Bourdain. I'm like, I don't own a TV. Yes. And then I was on Chef Roble, which, was funny because apparently I don't have enough black puppets, which is pretty funny. I should get an army. And that was pretty funny too. But they showed my clip. I didn't end up making the cut, but I ended up on ElvisDuran.com because Mr. Movie Phone's son asked me out on the street and I pulled out my puppet and he never returned my phone calls. I always thought guys were into a girl with a puppet. What do you think of that, Matt?
Next question. Oh boy.
And it has gotten awkward in here. I'm the kind of guest that'll do that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, I honestly expected nothing less. I was very excited for this this conversation because I do my research. But what were some of those shows with your name in the title? Some stuff that you unfortunately I'm not connected to your internet here, so I can't pull that up for reference. But what were some of your other more independent ventures?
My other more independent ventures, here in the city, I did a one-woman show, Allergic to Ambition, but also I had a public access show when I was 19 years old called Storytime with April and Friends, where I read bedtime stories to children, and I was on public access shows channels rather, in 36 states, 6 countries, and the World Wide Web in its infancy. Like, this was when web streaming was rather archaic. And even though I've gone on to tell jokes in dingy basements, my mother said, "You're a college-educated woman. Stop using those 4-letter words." My first love is children's television. And as a matter of fact, I am involved with a project with children right now, the Gotham Comedy Foundation, where I just did a show for the children at William Morris Children's Hospital. Actually, no, Morgan Stanley Children's Hospital. William Morris, Morgan Stanley. I get my financiers mixed up.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes, luckily they're not benefactors and they're not paying me money to say their name. Otherwise, that would be really awkward. But the truth is I did the show for those kids, and I actually wrote a story where it was puppets, it was snow monsters, it was adventure. And so that's where I think my next turn is programs for children, because I love children. I'll say it. I mean, I might seem like an unlikely children's entertainer, but I love doing shows for children because kids will give you direct feedback. They will let you know if it's not working.
So how is that? Because your comedy club act, and I follow your puppet on Facebook. Your comedy club act is not necessarily for children. So how do you balance that dichotomy of being an adult entertainer and also having shows for children? How do you make sure the people who book both those shows kind of don't meet, if you will?
Well, I do shows for both. Well, there's this misconception that you can't do both. And Richard Pryor did both, believe it or not. He had a show for children. It didn't last very long because of a network glitch. It wasn't because he couldn't do it. But he was very good. Martin Lawrence has done children's movies, Eddie Murphy. So what it is that funny is funny. I have one act for the children and one act for the adults. And when I was younger, because there's a lot of pressure in the New York City club world to be edgy and dirty. And I kind of fell into the pressure because one of my heroes is Otto and George. And I got to work with Otto several times, and I look up to him highly. But a few summers ago, I got to perform at Coney Island, and they didn't tell me that it was a kid's show before I got there. And I had been doing a lot of adult shows, so it was like, eek, But I managed to water my material down. And the truth is that you can still be edgy with children. You can't be dirty, because there's this misconception that you have to be lame. No, you aren't lame with kids. You can be edgy, you can be smart, but also you have to be fun and lighthearted and obviously clean, because there's this misconception that kids aren't bright and the kids are ignorant. No, kids are very knowledgeable. And so when I do both, I treat the kids like I would an adult audience, except I make it clean, and I don't have any innuendos, and I make it fun, and I make it creative. I give them the same show as I do an adult audience, but I don't talk about the same material, because why would you disrespect children like that? You don't do that. And this is what a lot of people don't understand, and that's why it's so hard for a lot of comedians to work clean, because they think clean means lame. No. If you go to any alt room in the city, they are sophisticated, they are smart, and they are clean.
Mm-hmm. And that you find that it's actually been quite surprising to me, working in New York City as you do too, that the amount of clean acts that are here, because you'd think, oh, it's just the people that want to use blue humor every night at the midnight show, but it's just been, it's taken me by surprise, but it's been a good surprise.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of people don't like the dirty stuff. A lot of my jokes that kill aren't necessarily dirtier, they're edgier. Like, they're edgier and they're smart. I actually did a set. I had to do a clean set for an occasion. And a lot of my stuff was edgy, but it was completely clean. And it was an alt room, and they loved it. It was fun, and they loved it because they could appreciate a good joke. And I did the same show for more of an urban show because I was prepping for this particular event. And they loved it. They loved it because everybody likes funny. And the truth is that, one thing that performing in more alt rooms lately has taught me, because there's this myth in New York City that the club scene and the alt scene are always at war. But one thing that I learned from the alt rooms is you don't have to be mean or dirty. You can just be funny. You can have fun. And comedy doesn't always have to be mean. Comedy is about love. And being able to make somebody laugh is a loving act. And it's not just about making money or getting on TV. And I've done both with comedy. Well, more getting on TV than making money, ask my parents. But the truth is that it's a gift and a sacred duty, and it's not about you. It's about love.
Absolutely, and that's a great place to head into our final question. I always end with this. April, what do you want to see from this generation of ventriloquists? Arguably, the generation you are a part of as well, coming up, hoping to make a career out of this. What do you want to see? What's missing?
What's missing is there needs to be more of us in the mainstream, and there needs to be more ventriloquists that aren't afraid. Because right now it's like there's this misconception of ventriloquism and blah blah. What we need to do is we need to focus less on being ventriloquists, less on being prop acts, less on being the other, and more on just being funny. Because if you are funny, no matter who you are and no matter what you do, that will speak for itself. Because I remember when I started comedy in the city, and I'm speaking to the young women right now. Listen, ladies, a booker told me, you have 3 strikes against you. You're a woman, you're pretty, and you're a prop act. And I remember that stinking me. And I thought, okay, because I was encouraged to develop as a regular stand-up, and I did, because I do both. But I remember thinking, I want to work harder, and I want to be funny. And somebody told me, April, you know that you've made it, and you've passed the mark when somebody says to you, not that you're a good ventriloquist, but a good comedian. And so now I make it my business to be a good comedian. So I want to see good comedians from this generation, because you can have the best lip control in the world, but if you don't have the material, you ain't making the cut.
Absolutely, and that's a great place. April Brucker, thank you for having me in your home today.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on the program. Thank you again to April Brucker for coming on the program. It was really, really great. And I want to thank you, listeners, for listening to that. I know we introduced kind of the controversial aspect of it, but I truly believe that we all have diverse opinions about what we should and shouldn't do and ways to go about it. But I believe that people's stories are the most important, and that everybody deserves to have their stories told, because you never know how the history of this art form is going to unfold and what the history is going to look like in the future. So I just want to tell people's stories. That's all I strive to do. So I hope you truly did enjoy it, and thank you for listening. Now, the reason I wanted to check back in with you here in studio before we wrap up is just to let you know that there will be no episode next week on March 17th. We do, however, return on March 24th. The reason for the week-long break is very simple. We are on spring break at college, and I just won't be here to put the stuff together. So we return on March 24th with Chuck Lyons, who is a ventriloquist and also a funeral director. I know where your brains are going right now, and so does Chuck. Actually, I haven't talked to him yet, but he knows I want to talk about that interesting dichotomy when we speak with him on the 24th. I'm very, very excited to do the interview and share it with you when we return in 2 weeks. Until then, signing off for Ventriloquism Weekly, I'm Matt Bailey, reminding all you vents out there to keep talking for two.